Whale bodies and fish bodies are all fusiform, designed to cut through the water smoothly. Why is that? Organisms sharing most of their DNA should develop following the same basic patterns. They do. Fossils found in different continents that were once united should be similar to each other. They do. Last slide here. So, in my rebuttal then, we'll come back to irreducible complexity. But my point in my opening argument here is that we have answers to these mysteries. Some of them we're very confident in. Others we're less confident in. Others we admit that we're just guessing. We don't know. More data needs to be collected. But even if we're wrong about all of it, it doesn't make the God hypothesis right. And I would caution you, don't hook your faith to any scientific argument, because what are you going to do if it's wrong? Or what are you going to do if it turns out we have an answer? Thank you.
How many lawyers do we have here this evening? Would you stand up? Lawyers? I'm here. That's true. There's one or two. I love how Michael dismisses the law. Tonight when he gets caught speeding, I hope he says to the officer, "You're talking about the law. I want to talk about the science of motors." And it's not going to work. In evidence class, we learn that the more powerful your argument, the shorter the amount of time you need to make it. And so now in the 5-minute round, a lot of the rhetoric goes aside and a lot of the sidebars, but the hardcore analysis of how did we get here and when did we arrive? Dr. Hovind?
Is it 5-minute or 6-minute? My schedule says 6. I'm not going to get this done here. All right, let me start with Kyle Fraser's arguments. If we can get the screen black there. Reasons to believe. Reasons to believe what? Reasons to believe the Bible or reasons to believe Hugh Ross? I've always wondered about that one. Can we trust the Bible? Is the Bible literally true? Or do we need some guru to tell us what it means? The average person reading that book is not going to come up with the billions of years that he comes up with. The average person reading the Bible is going to come up with 6 days about 6,000 years ago. And the Bible is going to say, there's no death till Adam sinned. The question of where did energy, life, matter, information, and organization come from is still, I think, of course, Kyle Fraser's position is, God did it. I agree. But is God capable of doing it and telling us how he did it? As far as the red shift, I cover this in great detail on videotape number 7 of my series out there. Get my plug in here. Most of his arguments seem to be based on the assumption that the red shift proves the universe is expanding, and the universe may be expanding. But that still doesn't prove it's billions of years old. On day 1 or day 6, Adam was 0. But he didn't look 0. The trees had fruit on them. They were just 3 days old. They don't look like what we would think would be a 3-day-old tree. The God that I worship is capable of creating a fully mature, fully functioning universe in 6 days, just like he said. He said God is trillions and trillions and trillions of times more powerful than man. Man, to me, that's heresy. God is infinitely powerful. This is a limited God. My God's not limited, okay? Look at the background radiation as like looking at God. To me, that also would be heresy. God doesn't look like that at all. And nature is the first witness. That was interesting. And the Bible is the second witness. I like nature. I like science. I'm not against science, but folks, that's not how it's supposed to work. The God that I worship is not only capable of creating, he's capable of writing a book and telling us how he did it, and he can preserve that book for everybody today. That's the God that I worship. Now, for Michael Shermer, he said he was a born-again Church of Christ church member. I don't know if he was or wasn't. That's between him and God to judge, which he will face one day. The majority of audience here believe in God, which is because we're right in this case, all right? The God of the gaps, miracles did it. You should look at the evolution theory and see how many miracles they have to pull in. How did life get started? His argument that the Virgin Mary appeared on the side of a building as a natural explanation, I agree. I think that's dumb. I think it's a fundraiser for the Catholic Church. I think there's a lot of that stuff goes on. Okay? And I think he is very right to be skeptical of many of the things going on in Christianity. He's right. They ought to be skeptical. Okay? My position is it's good to be skeptical of things like that. Now, he ought to use the same skepticism on the evolution theory, but he's not doing that. Okay? If we cannot explain it, that does not mean God did it. I agree. There are many natural explanations. Okay? Do scientific explanations nullify our faith? Not at all. I love science. I don't know anything scientific that nullifies the Bible. I know that a lot of things the Bible contradicts from evolution theory, but evolution is not part of science. Evolution is a religion. He said nearly, by the way, let me point out here, nearly all branches of science were started by creationists, because he mentioned I forget what the point was that brought that up, but I put it in here. Okay. Francis Bacon was a creationist, Kepler, Pascal, Boyle, Newton. The list is huge of people creationists who started just about every single major branch of science today. The evolution theory has done nothing to the improvement of science. It is a useless theory, and it is counterproductive, in my opinion. So you can't claim that scientists are all evolutionists. They're not. There are thousands of scientists today who are creationists. Okay? Many major branches of science were started by creationists. Let's see, where did I leave off here? Comparative anatomy. That was interesting that he would use that one about the whale's flipper. Comparative anatomy, if I can get to that one. Oh, did I get to the right one? I'm sorry. I'm going to have to install the ocular enhancers. Hey, I'm 50 years old. I've been fighting it as long as I can, all right? It's true that the human arm and the whale's flipper and the bat's wing have some similarities. I agree. We have a radius and an ulna, so does the whale, okay? But the whale didn't name them, by the way. This textbook says these homologous structures provide evidence that these animals evolved from a common ancestor. This is baloney. Those structures provide evidence that they have a common designer. The same guy designed them all. It works great. You mentioned the Triceratops. When did God intervene? This is setting up a straw man argument, okay? He says, here's our chart showing how we think the different ceratops evolved. Now, how did God do this? That's a straw man argument, okay? I don't know how many different kinds of creatures God originally created. That's up to him, I suppose, okay? And what he's done, he's taken the evolutionary assumption that there is some kind of order to this geologic column. And by the way, the geologic column does not exist any place on planet Earth, okay? Geologic column is one of the biggest, cruelest jokes in the history of humanity. I taught earth science for years. Geologic column does not exist. And then he mentioned carbon dating, and all these things give ages within a certain range, which proves their accuracy. Well, let's see. Living mollusk shells were carbon dated 2,300 years old. They're still alive. Science, volume 141. Freshly killed seal, carbon dated 1,300 years old. Antarctic Journal, September. Shells from living snails were carbon dated 27,000 years old. Well, that's accurate. This guy said if a C14 date supports our theories, we put it in the main text. If it does not entirely contradict them, we put it in a footnote. If it's completely out of date, we just drop it. Anthropological Journal of Canada, volume 19, said no matter how useful it is, the radiocarbon method is still not capable of yielding accurate and reliable results. There are gross discrepancies. The chronology is uneven and relative. The accepted dates are actually selected dates. This whole blessed thing is nothing but 13th century alchemy. It all depends upon which funny paper you read. One part of a mammoth dated 29,000 years old. Another part of the same animal is 44,000 years old. Man, you talk about a slow birth. Dima, well, I told you I need 6 minutes, but that's okay. We got plenty more. Get video number 7 right out there. Thank you so much.
I did, in fact, extend to 6 minutes because it is a common complaint of all debaters that they are cut off too early, and you will have 6 minutes as well. Kyle Fraser, you're up next.
Are you with me? Are there? Have I mentioned yet what a hard thing this is to do? It seemed to me like I did that a minute ago. Well, here I am back again, and I'm having to put together some stray thoughts. And like Brother Hovind, I'm sure it's kind of like hitting a moving target. You know, you don't know where you're going. But what I would like to do is take a quick look at one of the comments that Brother Hovind made, and that is that his God is powerful enough to do anything. And I think we need to be careful with that type of Aquinan logic. I do agree that God has ultimate power. In other words, that He is the most powerful of any conceivable being in the universe. But we have to be careful of impugning to God the capacity to do things that He has not claimed. We have to be careful about ascribing to God things that He cannot do. Could He make a stick with only one end? No, a stick has 2 ends on it. It's because that's a logical contradiction for God to do something like that. Can He make a rock that He couldn't lift? Okay? No, it's a logical contradiction for God to do something like that. And so we need to be careful of ascribing to God those things that He has not claimed. And so when I take a look at how powerful